Welcome to Natural Born Talents. Today's subject, the practical application of your aura for education and choosing a career path. For further details, you will need the book Love Match. However, in this video, I'm going to give you a common scenario I see in families and friends when choosing a career path. Now, as we all know, education can be very, very expensive, so it would be wise to choose a career path that suits your psyche, no matter what the price is. Because if you are choosing something by social pressure or parental pressure, you're very likely going to end up very frustrated that you wasted a lot of time trying to figure out what career path you should have chosen. Not to mention the debts you have to pay off for something that is useless for you. So let's start off with this scenario. This is Ben. This is his wife, Janice. Both are divorcees with children, sort of like the Brady Bunch +1. They live in a very affluent neighborhood, so image is everything to these two parents. They're both very well educated, have good income, and live in a large house. Ben uses computers well in his business. Janice is an educator. Ben is a yellow with a green-tan overlay. Janice is a red with no overlay. On the surface, they look like they're pretty good with kids. However, when they start making decisions on their children's education, it's based on social pressures which are not suited for their children. So let's take a look at the children to see how that works. Now, children generally are involved with only their primary core aura. The secondary overlays really don't take effect until later in life, so we'll be concentrating on their main auras only. Here is Mark. He's a violet. He's the eldest of the children. Violets have very specific goals in life. Of all the auras, they need to figure out exactly what their purpose in life is. It's very specialized. However, Ben and Janice pressure him to go into computers like his father because it's safe, because it makes money. So they send Mark to all of these special elite schools, spend lots of money on him, but in the end, he's totally frustrated. What he really wanted to do is be a chef, but not just any chef. He loves very fine cuisine, and he wanted to be the best chef in all of his community. He saw that food was an art form. He had a vision of creating his own restaurant, which eventually would branch out into various chain restaurants, all with a very fine cuisine, at a good price, great atmosphere, targeting the middle class or upper middle class market, sort of like certain fancy coffee restaurants. Being the visionary, he saw himself as the president of this huge fine food restaurant chain. However, his parents pressured him to go into computers, which he took. He took the safe way. He did well in the business because he's intelligent. However, he had this deep inner hate for himself and for the people around him for not choosing the right path. He became a narcissistic jerk, and his employees ended up hating him, and vice versa. Next came Jimmy. Jimmy was a blue-tan individual, and he was pretty sociable, likable, made friends pretty much with everyone. He made it clear that he wanted to be a veterinarian. He loved helping people, he loved animals, and his parents felt that that suited him as well as their image in the community. So he went on to school to study those things, got married, had children, and lived a pretty happy life. In his case, by luck or by instinct, he got the right path. Next came Martha. Martha was a magenta. Now, her parents pushed her to go into education because she's good with children. But Martha can't stand details, can't stand bratty children, doesn't have the patience for them. She loved new fashionable sports, new gimmicks, dance, theater, art, pop art in particular.
anything quirky and unusual. And though she loved the way children were pretty random and funny, she had very little patience in nurturing them. And when her parents pressured her to get good grades, to be good, do things right, she got depressed. But when she went out and followed her own instincts and did quirky, crazy things that few other people would dare challenge, she began to realize she was a complete nonconformist. She liked doing things what boys did. She was a complete tomboy. But instead of getting hateful and hostile and angry towards her parents or society, she had her own humorous backlash. She would just simply go out and do crazy stunts while skiing, have wild parties at 3 a.m. in the morning, listen to avant-garde music, eventually set up a studio and became a pop artist, fashion designer, and opened her own boutique. She married many times, with each relationship ending pretty well, just as friends. Although she was ridiculed for many things she did in her life, it was a small price to pay for the freedom she so desired. She was intelligent enough to follow her own instincts and not get hostile to the people around her who criticized her. Next came Robert. Robert was a lavender. Robert was the hardest for the family to figure out what to do with. He would often space out in the middle of sentences. He spent a lot of time alone, playing with his imaginary friends. He seemed to talk to himself or to someone when nobody was around. At first, they thought he had some sort of disorder as a child, but when they checked him out, he passed with flying colors. Now, since the family's grandfather had been in the military, they thought that Robert might be able to become more grounded in this world if he joined the military. However, when he went to the recruiting center, it took him 5 minutes to figure out that the military was not for him. Eventually, he went on to school, and though he majored in science, which pleased his parents, but halfway through he discovered he loved art, he loved painting, he loved photography. He wanted to study other cultures. He had esoteric pursuits. His parents thought he was wacky. So Bobby left home and went off to study all kinds of religions and cultures while doing his photography and artwork. It was difficult for him to return home because everybody was playing Keep Up with the Joneses while he was doing Zen meditation and practicing yoga. However, his artwork improved to the point where he started doing illustration for children's books and became well known. However, he did this all on his own, and his siblings could never forgive him for leaving home. Next came Lily. Lily was a shy, playful, loving, albeit rather emotional, child. As a child, she often talked about the day she would get married and have children. Lily was Ben's favorite. He put a lot of money in education for her, and in some subjects such as English literature, music, arts and crafts, she excelled, but wasn't really into anything like science or math, particularly computers, which she hated. After many days of conflicts with her parents, after many years of trying to figure out what she wanted to be, she eventually settled on becoming a music teacher, got married rather young, and started raising children. Fortunate for Lily, her husband was a very loving man, and although their family wasn't what you would call exciting or adventurous, it was rather stable and secure. Next came Heidi. Heidi had the crystal aura. She was very reserved as a child, very rarely talked to anyone. Even when she got older, it was difficult for her because she didn't know how to socialize. However, Heidi was very intelligent, especially things related to science, math, and particularly the medical field. Although she was rather lockstep, she pretty much could master anything, but felt it was her mission in life to do something in healing and therapy. She was so detailed-oriented, she ended up going into brain surgery. And although her parents were very proud of her skills and her intelligence, she did it because she felt it was her mission, it was her purpose, not because it paid well. Last came Peter. Peter was Janice's favorite. However, Ben didn't like him. Peter was a yellow, and this is probably why Ben didn't like him. They had the same strengths and weaknesses. And it's also probably why Janice liked Peter the most. He was a lot like her husband. However, Peter was constantly babied by Janice. Now, since the rest of his siblings did pretty well, he didn't have confidence in himself. He couldn't sit still long enough in school to absorb anything meaningful. He was too overweight to do anything in sports. He constantly got into trouble at school because he was bullied all the time for being overweight. Ben wanted to put him into some sort of physical therapy program, but Janice felt that was too harsh for him. Peter was easily addicted to things like sugar, coffee, drugs, alcohol. He loved to party and he loved to be with his friends. But eventually he got into some hard drugs, mainly because he never found out what he really wanted to do in life, complicated by his weight problem and his overprotective mother. He did learn computer science from his father and was very practical with his skills, but he never took it serious enough and found it too boring because it kept him away from playing and partying with his friends. He was eventually diagnosed as a diabetic. He never listened to his parents' advice about his weight issue and eventually died young from a heart attack. Now, although this is a fictitious family, the scenarios are very real. They are taken from many cases that I've had in the past. Had these parents understood auras more deeply, for example, many of the problems would have been solved at a very early age. Many sibling rivalry, many expensive mistakes would have been avoided. Of course, life is often about making mistakes so you can learn it yourself. However, in such large families or complicated families, it would be probably a good idea to figure out your real talents for your children, or for yourself, or even for your friends at an early age. You'll save yourself a lot of headaches and a lot of expenses as well. In the future, I'll be doing another video on education from the teacher's point of view and the student's point of view, as opposed to the family. But the next video on this subject will be about finding your true love. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you in the next video.